Hi, this is Abul Hussain coming to you direct from London, the United Kingdom, and welcome to another episode of the SMMA Mastermind podcast. Now, if you are watching this interview outside of our Facebook group for social media marketing agency owners, make sure you find the link above or below this video or go to smmamastermind.com, especially if you're looking to start or scale your agency. Now, with that out of the way, I have a very special guest joining me all the way from Los Angeles. She is a lawyer turned PR guru, and we're going to talk all about PR and building your agency. She is the founder of Generation PR and works with beauty, baby, and lifestyle brands, ranging from small businesses all the way up to multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. And she's also helping other entrepreneurs start their own PR agencies. Now, with that, I'd like to welcome Jen Burson onto the show. Jen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool to connect with you in this way. Very cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, we are living in a strange world at the moment where we're not going to our offices, but we are able to connect with people halfway across the world in different time zones. So, you know, as a bit of an introduction for the people who are watching this who don't know who you are, how about kind of, I suppose, you give a bit of your story?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Where to start? Well, you mentioned that I was an attorney. You do your homework. I appreciate that you that you checked into my background before having me on, but I definitely kind of made a total 180 without any experience or contacts or training, much to the dismay of my family. But I started my career as a civil litigator in Los Angeles and practiced law for 4 years. And, you know, in my late 20s, I kind of thought about, you know, starting a family and looked around my law firm and didn't see any women that had the life I was looking for, any kind of, you know, kind of balance with their time and being able to be a partner at the firm and also be at their kids' soccer games in the afternoon. And, you know, that's what I grew up with my parents being around and supporting us in our activities. And I saw long-term that probably wasn't the path for me. So just that seed was planted, and I started doing PR on the side unpaid while I was still practicing law. And I loved the work so much. I mean, I was not getting paid to do this. And I thought to myself, if I can actually make money doing this, this would be the best career ever. It was just such a better fit for my personality. You got to work with really cool companies and promote entrepreneurs and brands that you really love and believe in. So I just left one day and, you know, let the firm know. And they were like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. There's like no love lost in, you know, big law firms. And that was 15 years ago in 2005. My agency, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. And you know, just kind of grown every year, very lucky to be in that position. And then about 4 years ago, kind of realizing that a lot of people would come to me over the years. This is a little weird transition going from law, you know, to PR with no experience. So a lot of people asked me, how did you do it? How did you get your start? And I started kind of mentoring people all over the world. It was super cool how they found me. I don't even know how they found me, but and after doing so much of that and it really getting the same questions over and over again, I started to think, maybe other people would be interested in knowing about this too. Let me try putting some structure around this. So then I created my agency accelerator, where I teach people how to launch, grow, and scale a profitable agency. And then we have a free Facebook group to support that. So while you have your Facebook show and your podcast, our kind of free content is a Thursday Facebook Live. I just got off of it right before we connected. And then in the middle of the pandemic, I started to realize that a lot of people wanted to brush up on their skills, and they needed the ability to, like, there's a lot of PR courses that are aimed at entrepreneurs trying to do their own PR, but there's not a lot aimed at PR professionals. There's this assumption that you work at a firm and you learn how to do it by practicing at somebody else's company. But a lot of the women in my program are independent contractors, solopreneurs, maybe they're like social media strategists looking to add a scalable service. So we launched the Pitch Lab in late April, which is a membership community, and we teach PR professionals how to execute PR services for their clients. And it's just taken off like wildfire, like better than I could have ever imagined. And it's so fun and such an engaged community, and I'm just really loving it. Awesome.
That's a great story, and congratulations on the 15 years. Most people don't last 15 minutes on their own. A paycheck from a big firm. So, you know, that's kudos to you for all that you've done. Now, a lot of people, you know, they hear PR and they have all sorts of notions and ideas about what it is. Even, you know, myself, when I hear of PR, I think of like a press officer writing press releases, sitting in an office. I mean, what is the actual definition of PR and how does it work?
I don't know the actual definition of PR, public relations. I mean, it's like you're a communications strategist. And I think that it can vary from person to person and from agency to agency. And a lot of what I teach in the program is do the things you love and don't do the things that don't light you up, because this is your business. Most of the people that I work with are solopreneurs or running their own businesses. So I let them know, if you're going to go through the effort to create a business, you might as well love what you're doing. So there could be a lot of aspects of PR that would vary from person to person. I just know what we practice. I cut out all the stuff that I don't like. You know, I don't really do that. And I'll tell clients, well, you don't really need to do that. Or if that's something that's important to your strategy, then maybe you would bring in an outside. So like maybe there's events before this whole, you know, international like pandemic shut everything down. My agency doesn't really promote and create events because I don't love them personally. I don't like the stress. I had one large scale event and I did not enjoy all of the elements that went into it. So our clients don't do that as part of their strategy, at least not in the piece working with us. What we are doing, not so much press releases anymore. You know, what we're doing is strategic, targeted, tailored pitching to individual outlets, journalists, freelancers, creating story angles, pitching them, following up, making sure that they know that this isn't like a mass pitch, throw spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks, but something that's carefully crafted given their readership or their editorial focus, and a story that's useful, adds value to them and their readers, fits in with what they cover, adds a unique spin on something. So we're crafting those angles, and I'd say the majority of what we're doing in our agency and what our students are learning in our programs is how to effectively pitch in a targeted and timely manner, you know, that gets attention. No spray and pray. We're creating, we call them pitching powerhouses, that they're just very media savvy and understand how the media works and how to make what you're doing fit for their needs.
Mm-hmm. And when people hear about PR, they always think of big businesses who have the firepower and the money to do PR effectively. How does PR work when you're dealing with small businesses? What can small businesses do to, I suppose, leverage some PR tactics?
Oh my gosh, they can do so much. I think a lot of it is a mindset thing, because you do think, well, you know, if I'm going to pay a PR firm, it's a huge monthly retainer, and that's not attainable. And if I do something myself, they're not going to take me seriously. So that's just a mindset shift that has to happen. You need to realize, number one, there's nobody that can tell your story better than you. Nobody knows your business. Nobody knows your path to get here, the lessons you've learned along the way. Nobody knows your brand and your products better than you. So who better to share your story? And I promise you that media will listen. They'll take you seriously. It's really about positioning something of value to them. So if your pitch is good and it's a good idea, they'll pay attention to it, especially if it's really targeted and it clearly demonstrates that you're familiar with their outlet, their publication, you read it, you consume it, you appreciate it. It's about making a personal connection. And I think there's so much that smaller companies can do, even if they, are working with maybe a freelancer or a small, like limited scope project for 3 months to launch the brand or to launch a product line, something along those lines, or do it yourself. Honestly, it's not hard to find people. Everybody's responsive on social media. You can reach out to a journalist and find the best way to connect with them to send a pitch. They're open to receiving ideas, and really, like, the very first step is just get into that mindset that you have something of value to offer and you're not annoying them. If you're offering something that's useful to them, they want to hear from you, and they're looking for interesting stories to tell. So why not yours?
Mm-hmm. And you've touched on this being a pitching powerhouse business. What does the perfect pitch look like?
Oh, well, it's going to vary from, publication, media, type of media, whatever medium you're pitching, it's going to change. But I would say some elements that are consistent across the board, you have to customize it for that journalist and that outlet, at least so that it is clear to them when they see it that this isn't like a mass pitch, like,
right,
dear podcaster, like, who does that? It's so lazy. And even PR agencies do it because they're churning out volume. They do mail merge, and it's like generic as generic could get. And those pitches get ignored. They're playing a numbers game. They're trying to get, mass. It's quantity over quality. So every pitch is going to have an idea. What's the angle? What are you looking to get? I mean, even if it's a brand launch, you can't just be like, we're here it is. You've got to share, this is why it's relevant to your readers. Here's how you can share this story. I know you typically cover, new and notable in your publication. This would be a great fit for that. So, whatever it is that you're sharing, there has to be some personalization. So it's really obvious to the reader that this is just for them. And an idea, a pitch angle, maybe a couple that are just simply bullet points and a strong call to action at the end, and have it be succinct, short and sweet and to the point. So you're not overwhelming them. The idea is just get them interested in responding, get them to bite the hook. And so you then you reel them in with like more information and follow up with details. But if you just word vomit in your pitch and it's everything that they would ever want to know, they'll just get overwhelmed. You have to think, I talked to a couple journalists at Fast Company, Huffington Post, and Entrepreneur. They get over 100 pitches a day, between
wow,
75 and 150 a day. So if you're going to stand out, they're just literally triaging, delete, delete, delete. So if they look at your message and it's overwhelming, they're not going to read it. So just short and sweet, very clear point, clear call to action, clearly meant for that journalist and that journalist alone, and you're most likely to get a response.
Well, it sounds like a lot of work to do this.
It is. It is. But on that note, if I could just kind of clarify that point, because it is a lot of work, which is why, brands pay agencies to do the work. But as a small company, or if you're an entrepreneur doing it yourself as an expert, I like to focus in on a few key outlets. You cannot pitch everyone. You cannot take this approach with everyone. So think about the most important outlets where you really feel a connection. The content resonates with you so much. You know that this is the exact right fit for you and your story. You can add so much value, and laser in on 3 to 5 and just start there so you don't feel overwhelmed, because it does take a lot of time. Then there's also following up. We probably secure 80 to 90% of our features for clients in the follow-up phase. So you can't just send a pitch and go okay, they're all gonna get back to me. You have to follow up and see it through. And it might take, 3, 4, or 5 tries with different angles, different journalists. So it is time consuming. So we just say laser in on a few that really matter and don't get overwhelmed. Just get started. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a better approach than pitching all of my local papers, my regional papers, my national papers. So
make you crazy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm sure you've worked in quite a few PR campaigns. Which one would you say you're the most proud of, or was the most successful that comes to mind?
One just recently, we're representing an international beauty brand. It's 𝗂𝘆𝗲𝗿, which is like makeup, and then tools, brushes, brush cleaning. You know, they kind of invented a couple categories in beauty tool innovation. They have a bunch of patents. Really, really cool company. And they had a couple launches scheduled. And in March, when, you know, everything shut down with the pandemic, we were, as PR pros, and I have a community of thousands of pros that we talk to each other. It's like a collaborative community. And so there was this big kind of feeling of like, what now? If we pitch, is it in bad taste? Are people only talking about COVID? Can we launch products? You know, editors were no longer in their buildings. They were working from home. So where do you even send samples? Like what were the changes that were happening and how do we navigate that? So for that brand, we kind of pivoted, and one of their categories is brush cleaning, you know, like cleaning and disinfecting your makeup brushes because you're touching them to your face. And there was a lot of talk in the beginning of COVID about limiting the spread. They didn't know if it was spread by physical contact. So in that first 3 months of the pandemic, we had multiple campaigns that we ran to try to keep them relevant during this time. So there was like thought leadership from the founder, because she has a specific expertise on, you know, cleaning, sanitizing, but also she's a veterinarian who happened to study coronavirus in pigs as part of her. We were just like, how is this even a thing? But she had so much knowledge to share. So we were kind of pitching her out. There's this kind of thing in a downturned economy called the lipstick factor, where people buy inexpensive purchases that make them feel good. And given that so people are wearing masks, so they're not seeing their faces when they're out in public, but they're on Zoom. And so they want to look good on camera. So it's like luxury brands are sinking, but smaller companies with little luxuries that are easy to afford and make you physically feel good. That's what happened in the other economic crises. So we had her commenting on the lipstick factor, and we got a bunch of press for that. We did launch 2 other products during that period of time. We got really great press for those launches, and then an entire run of press all around cleaning and sanitizing her makeup brushes. So in 3 months, we got her in Oprah magazine, Allure print magazine. Like the impressions were incredible. And when it all we looked back at it cumulatively, the sentiment in our industry was like, oh, COVID, nobody's responding to anything. And we were like, yeah, they are. Like, we're doing really, interesting angles and getting a great response for this client. So I put together a sizzle reel on just the first months of COVID. And it's like 30 top tier press placements for this client. Wow. So I'm really proud of that.
Okay, that's great. I mean, so I suppose when you're looking at a product or service, would you say that any product or service can effectively be PR'd, or does it need to be something new, something innovative, something that is a bit of a disruptor?
Yeah, that certainly helps. Although, PR words you're supposed to avoid are innovative, unique, disruptive, because they're like empty kind of buzzwords that we use even when something isn't. And so you have to explain it rather than just saying that word and hoping that that's enough. So definitely if there is something that is new and noteworthy and different and is disruptive, it is absolutely media worthy. But any company, any brand, any entrepreneur can find a way to make their company, their products, even products that have been on the line for 2-3 years. I mean, we have come up with new pitch angles for products that have existed and come up with new ways to use them. Or we had we represent beauty brands, like I said, so we had a hair mask that had been out for 2 years, and we said, take a little dollop and put it on a plate, microwave it for 30 seconds, put it in your hair, wrap your hair in saran wrap, which is not a cute look, but we said this is now a deep penetrating heat infused hair mask. And we got so much press for that, and it was not a new product. So it's about finding interesting, keeping the brand and the products fresh in the eyes of the media. When it comes to entrepreneurs, there's so many aspects of your story that are newsworthy and interesting. And it could be the results you've gotten for yourself or other people, because that shows what is possible and it's inspiring. That's why we all love these like makeover stories or weight loss stories, because we love the good before and after. It's so inspiring. But the steps you learned along the way, the tips you've learned, how others can learn based on your experience, that's also interesting, right? So you can share your journey, what you learned along the way. So there's always something. Like I had a call yesterday with one of the women in my program who's in Australia, and she did this really cool thing where she converted a historic building. It looked awful. Like it was an old stuffy law firm with green walls and burgundy carpet and so ugly looking, but it was a over 100-year-old historic building. And she converted it into this beautiful co-working and event space that is like jaw-dropping. And they're doing so many cool things there, brand activations and, photo shoots and editor parties and things that are really cool. And so we were talking about the space, but I said, well, what about you? You're a mom, you have a baby, and you did this whole thing in the middle of a global pandemic, and you did it yourself. You picked literally every single tile, every door handle, every sink that went into this building. And it's visually stunning. The before and afters are enough to get anyone interested. But think about your story and the fact that you were able to do this, and what you've done to, to support the community, and how you've restored the beauty of this historic building and took such pride and care. Like, that's really interesting. And she was like, oh, I never thought of it like that. So it's, it's little gems that would be so relevant to a local publication in Adelaide, because they would cover that and people would know the building and they would know the city. And so it's just about figuring out where those little gems are in the story and where they would be a good fit.
Awesome. That's a great story. Now,
I love it. Oh my God. Wait till you see.
Absolutely.
I'm going to send you these pictures and your jaw's going to like hit the ground. It's unbelievable what she did. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Now, I know we're very quickly running out of time, and I wanted to talk to you about you've got this program that you're helping PR professionals start their own agency. And a lot of the people who are going to be watching this, they're going to be digital marketers, startup agency owners, people looking to build some form of an agency. So experience, what have you found to be some of the best ways to pick up clients?
Oh God, there's so many. Best ways to pick up clients. So the framework we teach in the Agency Accelerator, it's this 4-part path to profitability framework. It's strategy, sales, service, and scale. And the whole premise is based on, once, can you hear my kids? We had a conversation earlier that the kids are home. They are like,
a little bit, but it's all good.
Guys, mommy's recording a show. See if they shut the door. So we teach this whole framework that is kind of based on the premise that once clients are in the door, you keep them and you have this solid foundation of consistent, predictable, recurring retainer revenue. And then you build on that, and always heading down a path, working with brands and in a niche and the types of clients that you love and you want to work with long-term, so that it all is like stepping stones. So we're always looking, I don't want to be reactive and just take whatever comes my way, because then you build an agency that's haphazard and it's not focused. And the trick is that when you specialize, you can charge more, right? So when you have a deep expertise in certain niches, people come to you, they seek you out, and you set your price. So that's what I teach. So with that being said, it's all intentional. So working with brands you believe in, or the type of niche that you want to ultimately specialize in. Maybe when you're getting started, you offer your services at a discounted rate or for free. I was an attorney, so I was just like, I'll do it for free just to get experience. And then we came into the market, and then we eventually got up to market rate. But we took those results and we leveraged them to get more clients. So you create case studies, you share your results. So it can be your own social media platforms in putting out the content that you want to attract the types of clients that would be interested in that content. The number one way is definitely your network. And it could be as simple as just telling people, like, this is what I do, this is who I help, this is how I help them, and here's how you can help me. Do you know anybody in your network that you'd be willing to, share my services with? And you can write it up for them. And even in my program, I have like outreach templates for a bunch of scenarios. So I have a letter that you can take and tailor it to reach out to your network, because they're likely to vouch for you and your, who you are as a person and the kinds of values you have in the work that you do. So definitely your network's the number one way, but your website too. I mean, we just got a new business inquiry from a really awesome established brand, and she did a Google search, which is really cool that she found us. And when she got there, the case studies and the results that we shared really attracted her and lured her in, because she said, I could see my brand working with your agency. I could see the results that I'm looking for. It was right there. I could see the testimonials from brands that I know telling me what their experience is like working with you. So there's a bunch of layers to it. But it's always being intentional with who you work with, so you can like build down a path to bring in more of the types of clients that you want to work with. If you're just taking work from like your coworker's cousin because they have an Etsy store and they're selling beaded jewelry, but you want to work in tech, like don't take that client. Don't do that favor, because you're just, first of all, you're wasting time and you're heading down a path that is going to be a dead end for you, so don't do those favors. You can respectfully say, no, it's not for me, but and also don't let people pick your brain for free, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll probably need to invite you back just to do one whole episode on building an agency, because we've spoken about PR and how for businesses and all of that. And I'm sure it's going to be of value to a lot of people who are watching this, I mean, so if someone wants to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to find you?
I'm on social media, like Instagram's kind of where we're hanging out the most. And I'm at Generation PR with a J. And Facebook, we have the Profitable PR Pros community. There's over 2,000 people around the world, and it's growing every day. So request to join, totally free. And I do weekly content there. And then I have a lot of really good free resources on our, coaching website, which is, what do they call it now? It is profitableprpros.com, and that'll like redirect you to where all that stuff is sitting. So, we just, however I can help, I am excited to connect, globally. I think it's the coolest thing ever to be able to connect with people all over the world, and how you found me. I think it's so awesome, and these strategies work everywhere.
I'm glad I found you, because this has been an awesome show and it's going to help so many people.
Oh, good. I'd love to come on anytime. You just let me know.
Brilliant,
we'll just
brilliant.
Kids with an iPad and we'll just chat. So
oh yeah, we need to definitely schedule in a future episode just to focus on building the agency side of the business. On that note, Jen Burson, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.